Hey guys, my name is Hollow, and today we're taking a look at the newly released Shadow Arena by Pearl Abyss, a melee-focused battle royale game with that same objective as any BR game, to be the last man standing to win. As you can clearly tell though, it's basically Black Desert Online, the Korean-style MMO, but they made it a BR game. Now, however you feel about BDO, I think it's just silly to ignore that that game has some of the best action combat in any MMORPG and has some seriously fun PvP too. Hearing that they made it into a dedicated BR game is interesting and worth consideration because of that in concept. Personally, I love when games slap out a BR mode, not because I say enjoy all of them, some of them are alright, but because of the crazy reaction people have when they hear a new BR game in general. People love them outright or grown into oblivion because apparently this genre of game deeply offends them to their core for whatever reason. Either way, all that aside, today I aim to answer the question, should you play Shadow Arena? Let's get started. So, what kind of game is this? As I mentioned in the introduction, it's a battle royale, but actually this game mode already existed in Black Desert Online as a mini game. The director of Shadow Arena basically explained that this lets them step away from the limiting and restrictive details about the mini game being part of the original MMO and having it stand alone as its own battle royale game, giving them a chance to change core systems much easier for an overall better gameplay experience. They aim to create a much more action-orientated game with that freedom. As of yesterday, May 21st, it's free to play and download on Steam. Set in that same universe with the same visuals, that same engine as Black Desert Online, but without a time barrier of entry from the original BDO minigame in which you'd need to play and level up a character to be able to actually play the mode. Now, how does it work? We have two main modes of play, solo or teams. You'll be able to pick between 10 classes currently, which are basically souped up versions of those original classes but made into their own unique characters, having a set of abilities and passives from those original classes but modified and streamlined to suit the game mode better. These classes are locked behind in-game unlocks or a paywall or a free rotation that lets you play up to 6 of the 10 classes without any cost. You'll face off against a max of 40 players in one map, with the last man standing being the victor like you'd expect. It does include some PvE elements. There are many different AI enemies to fight. There's big bad bosses, ruined gardens, shadow warriors. Most of these aren't actually a major threat, but a way to gather power before fights. So once we hit play and we've picked a character, we'll be dropped into the arena, giving you a chance to try out your abilities and understand how they work if you need to, before the lobby is ready and the match actually launches. Once we get going though, we'll be launched into this large map, and once you land, you'll need to defeat enemy players and fight AI. The AI drop different items, be it gear or skill books. As you acquire skill books, you'll use these to unlock your different potential abilities and then level them up to a max of 3 levels to increase their power. You get weapons, you get armor, you get skills, and overall, you power up your character as fast as possible before you get into fights, defeat enemy players, take their gear, get stronger, and keep powering up until you're unstoppable. During the start of matches, you'll have a brief grace period, about 4 minutes I believe, giving you some time to do as much PvE as possible and gather that power and equipment. Though during this time, you can actually fight other players and die during this period. Anyone who dies will respawn after a brief moment though. That player who lands the kill gets a short buff as a reward. We can also find chests, other items, special NPCs that drop extra loot during this period, and also in the main game to gather as much power as possible. Once the grace period is up though, the circle of play will begin to close in, forcing players into a smaller and smaller area until they can't avoid each other anymore, standard BR stuff, and the game mode really gets going. You can see the area of play on the map, all the events and little objectives that are going on, alongside how many players remain in the match too. PvP works just like the original BDO. It's going to be flashy, your movement, your positioning and proper use of abilities are all required to win the fight. It's just a bit more straightforward and simple than the original classes. As the match progresses and the map gets smaller, the AI will also become stronger and stronger with it, basically making them harder to kill, although not that hard to kill, more dangerous during a PvP fight because they'll keep attacking you while you're having your little PvP fight and do damage to you. With their increased strength though, they do reward better loot, helping everyone who survives and reaches that end game to power level faster as fewer and fewer players remain. Since there's boss AI around the map during special events, you need to keep your eye out because they might just crush you, especially at the end of the match because they're a huge threat and you're in a small area. But like I mentioned, these bosses also reward much better loot when you defeat them, so many players will run around hunting them whenever they're on the map where possible. It's a cool mix of sort of open world raiding and PvP all at the same time. Some other special events events are like the portals that you can attack to spawn in special powerful AI that also will drop great loot, or these reapers that this player spawns in the final circle to randomly attack those who remain. Not to mention, that final circle will move location just like in Fortnite instead of just closing in, to force even more pressure on those remaining in the final fight to actually fight and encounter each other. If we jump into a team match instead of solos, we have teams of 3 working together to survive, sticking together to power up and defeat enemies, and be, of course, the last players alive. But the fights are a lot more punishing because there's simply a lot more damage flying around because people are working together. Not to mention as well, you can queue into team games solo or as a 2-man, so there is some freedom there, but it's also going to be way harder since, you know, this is an RPG BR, gear and power is involved, and you're outmanned. So there's a bunch of the mechanics for you. The question is it fun? Yes, I think it's undeniably fun. Genuinely, I've really enjoyed playing it. It's that BDO combat and world. It just feels good. It's just streamlined. A simpler design that you're able to drop in and out of without any of those previous time commitments to level up a character. It's just solid in concept. Plus, because it's free to play and there's a team mode, you could just jump in solo or mess around in that BDO style of combat with friends. Visually, it's great. The animations are just as good as the original game. There's the looting or progression of your character that feels really good. It's very intuitive. You just press R to pick up loot, G to equip anything that's better, combine multiple loot that you picked up into better items, all with one button press. You don't even have to think about it. And they've got all those different elements to make the matches feel different from one another, the RNG loot, the bosses, and the events. That's all the positive stuff I can say about the game. There are some genuinely cool elements here, and I had a good time. But I only played it for a couple hours, and this game has some serious issues. From bugs to balancing issues, the game is way more clunky than the original right now. Those visuals may be wonderful in smaller fights, but when things get hectic like in team fights, there's almost too much going on to see what's actually happening. You can get CC'd locked into oblivion and that's not fun. Clearly, balancing is a challenge in a class-based BR, featuring RNG elements like the item drops. Some characters are simply stronger than others right now, and it's prevalent in the games that I played because you see those classes the most. Especially when it comes to the final survivors, it's always the same classes. And worst of all, there's a high time wall behind unlocking characters. Now, by default, they're pretty expensive in the shop, and then they take a long time to unlock via in-game currency. Currently, the game's lacking on features that help you earn extra in-game currency to unlock gameplay-affecting features, i.e. the classes. And that's emphasized worse by the fact that some of these classes are overtuned and outright stronger in a BR setting. General overhaul to give weaker classes more power is certainly needed. Now, we do have that free rotation to play whatever classes are available currently, but obviously everyone's going to always gravitate to the overpowered classes because that just makes sense. And a minor gripe from me is whenever someone decides they don't want to fight, since hey, they're losing the fight, they're just going to run away. And it's really hard to catch people because there isn't great chase down mechanics in the game so far. So there's some pros and cons for you, but here's a TLDR. It's fun, but it needs polish. And frankly, there's potential here, but I think people are less likely to see that potential because of the harsh business practices already in play, similar to how original BDO is criticized. And that's fair enough, man. So with all that in mind, should you play it? The answer is always ultimately up to you. It's fun at face value, easy to learn and play, it's free to play so there's no barrier of entry, so even if you're not sure, there's no cost in trying it and finding out if you like it. It's good to mess around with friends or solo, but you have to be aware of the current balance issues since some of the characters are kind of favored right now. You're going to see them more than any other class. Plus, there's other great class or ability-based battle royales out there, Spellbreak being a good example, while Shadow Arena has only just released and certainly needs improvement. Now, I do really appreciate that the devs feel like this could be its own game, and it lets them radically change core systems and not being limited by BDO MMO, letting them design a more functional, balanced, and fun combat RPG experience in a BR setting. I can stand behind that concept fully. Now, all they need to do is actually deliver on that. So, will you try Shadow Arena? If you have, what are your thoughts so far? I didn't expect to have as much fun as I did, but if I'm honest with myself, was that because I only played for a few hours? Would these imbalances bother me more long term and when a meta is established? Most likely, the answer is yes. Just like original BDO, I've had a great time compared to the people who have thousands and thousands of hours who actually deal with the real problems of that endgame power grind. Who knows? We're just gonna have to wait and see. For now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you very much for watching. Hope it was interesting, and I'll see you next time.